This is Mark Hedrick again, here making another tutorial. Going to use logic again. In this tutorial, I make a lot of Electro and Complextro. So I want to show users how to cut up Electro or Complextro loops to create their own arrangements, in a quick and efficient way. This should help you, like, if you have any like writer's block and you can't really come up with anything. Never be afraid to use loops, but definitely try to cut them up so that way you have something that's kind of your own. So let me open Logic, and I already have the session set up. It's at 128, which is what Electro and Complextro normally is at. A lot of people say the magic number of loops you should go for is a 4-bar loop or an 8-bar. I find that's kind of difficult unless you're used to it. I find it's kind of difficult to make a loop that makes sense that long. So it's better to start off with really small loops. So I'm going to start off with a 2-bar. But before I get into cutting up audio loops and whatnot, I want to talk about the 16-note grid real quick. See, here in Logic, you can make this grid up here. See, right now it's at 16, so there's 16 notes in 1 bar. 4 here, 4 here. It's 8, 16. You get the math. And then if I up it, now you have 32 in 1 bar. The best thing to do is, if you're working on your edit window in your DAW, is 16 note, which is really good. First, let me put just a quick kick down here, because most Electro, if not all Electro, and Complextro is 4 to the floor, which means there's a kick on every beat of the bar, so 4 kicks to each bar. Let's see. Go into my samples and just find a quick kick real quick. That's a good kick right there. I already did a tutorial on how to layer them and whatnot, so I'm just going to use 1 kick for this example. Alright, now that I have that set up, I have a kick happening on every beat of the bar for 2 bars. Okay, just mute this for right now. And let's bring in a loop and start chopping it up. But actually, first let me explain this grid right here. And I want to use just any stab as an example. A lot of people really don't know how to use a grid. I've learned or taught myself how to use a grid over time. And you'll see what I'm talking about when I start working with it. Just work with C. Alright, there we go. That's good enough. But anyway, when you have a 16 bar per loop, or a 16 note per bar, obviously, like I mentioned, you have 16 notes here. Well, if you move it right here to, I would say, like the second line in each beat, that's considered the off beat. Whereas if you put it right on a kick, it's the on beat. And you can kind of visualize, like, in your mind, like, where you want it to be. If you want it to be like that would be off beat. Where it's like that would be on beat. Here's a good example. I'll put it real quick. This is on the downbeat. Has kind of like a marching effect to it. Now the offbeat, usually what hi-hats and whatnot are set as. Alright, and those 2 are simple. But 2 other techniques people don't really take into account is how they get some of the skipping, as I would like to call them. So first, the 1 skip is skipping over the kick, which would be on the 3rd, I would say, note of the 1 beat, and then on the 1st note, or on the 2nd note, I should say, on the 2nd beat. And what happens is you get kind of like a skipping action. Let me play with just 1 real quick, and you'll see what I'm talking about. See how it kind of skips the kick? Another skip is another one I use a lot, which is not just over the kick, but actually on the kick and at the very end of the beat. So say like on the last note of the beat and then on a downbeat, you get a pretty cool pattern arrangement. And what you can do is you take into account, like in your mind, how you want it to play out. Let's say on the first 2 beats I kind of want it to be offbeat, and then for the second 2 I want to have it skip the kick and then do the second kind of skip I mentioned. And it should sound like, it should make sense. Alright, and that's basically the techniques you would have to know. I find 16 note pattern to be the most useful. When you start getting into like 32 or whatnot, you get more notes to work with to do crazier notes. But if you're just starting off, 16 is really the way to go. So alright, cool. Now I have that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to load in an actual loop and start cutting it up. Let's see. Alright, my Complextro. What I do is I go to Sounds and Samples and I buy like a lot of Complextro loops because that's my favorite genre. Although I love all the EDM. But let me find a good one. I already have it set to 128, which these are set to. If let's say you have it set to like 130 or something, obviously, and you have a 128 loop, it's not going to match up. Which in that case, I don't know how you do it in other DAWs, but in Logic you would hold Option and move it in, and I'll probably show you that at the end after I'm done. You know, showing you how to cut these loops up. Let's find a good one. Okay, I kind of like that one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to load it in here. And I am going to move out of the way. And if you can tell, if I was to line it up perfectly, it lines up perfectly because of it's 128 and so is the loop. But you can also see that the way these are made, they're already kind of side chained. If I zoom in here, you can see where the volume and the wavelengths kind of drop out where the kicks would really go. You know? So here's what it sounds like when I just play it all together with a kick. Alright, now what you do is bring it to the side. It's always good to make a copy of it in case you want this loop back. Then just mute it. That's how I work anyway. And then what you can do is you can start coming in here and just cut these loops to where it's like you have little pieces to a puzzle. And what you do is if you have writer's block or whatever and you really don't know what to do, you can take these and start to make your own arrangement. Work with 1 bar, and as you make 1 bar loop that sounds really great, like if it makes sense and you can play over and over, then what you do is you move it to 2 bars and try to make another phrase, like, you know, a call and then a response, and then see if you could redo it over again. But I'll get more into that after I work here a little bit. So let's see what sound this is I have going on here. Maybe I don't want to have that first. Alright, cool. I like that. What I'm going to do is this is actually side chained and the volume is coming up as it hits right here. But let's say I take the same exact loop, get rid of the side chainedness of it, as I guess you would call it, to about right. I'll make it even like that. And here, I have this playing, and then it happens on the first skip, as I would call it. I would do it again. This time, I'm going to place this on the offbeat here, but then shorten it up a bit. See if there's another sound in here out of the loops I picked. I like this one right here. Sounds like it has a little bit of a lead layered in with it. But I'm going to cut out the side chain part of it. Alright, cool. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to place this right here. So that way it does the skipping. The first skipping I showed you, which is over the kick instead of in between the kicks. I could always grab, let's see, this. Oh, I like this one right here. It sounds kind of like a stab. I really like working with stabs. Stabs are usually best to use like on the offbeat. They sound really good. Obviously, like that little synth I showed you, and it was like kind of. So grab this, and then this one I am going to do the in between. So we have here, we have the side chain, offbeat. Then it's going into skipping over the kick, and then what happens is now this one, after it skips over this kick, it starts skipping over this kick as well. But instead of actually skipping into the next note, I'm going to have it play the offbeat to just change it up a little bit. And then this is going to be the last skip, which is in between the kicks. Instead of over the kick, it's going to be in between the kicks. And let's just see how it sounds. I'm kind of winging it, so hopefully it sounds alright. So it probably needs a little work done to it, but you can always just lengthen the notes out. See, if you go like this and you cut it, you're not actually, it won't play past where you cut it at, but you're not technically cutting it. You're just uncovering the waveform. So like a good example is better to just show you. See how it sounds short? It's not cut though. If I was to bring it out, hear more of it. And you don't have to just do this with one loop. You can grab multiple loops and cut them up exactly like this. Like, I could spend hours doing this, like with all the loops that I had bought. Let's see if I can make this sound pretty good, and then we'll move on to the second phrase. It sounds like there's too much space here. So what I'll do is I'll probably make these both off beats. 16 note. So see what that sounds like. And I like this phrase right here. So what I'll do is I'll take this phrase, make it offbeat, and make it do it twice. So it's, and I like this side chain, so I'll grab this and see where I want to put it in this beat. I'll just have a side chain just like that once actually. Take this and put this here. Let's see. Let's go with 1/16th note of it. And then obviously you have the kick hitting here. This is where the snare would probably hit too. And right here. There's nothing here, so we have to fill this in. I'll take this. And what I'll do is I'll just have the buildup of it happening into, let's say, this. See what that sounds like. Alright, now let's see if it makes sense all together. You always want to kind of A and B. You make this phrase and you make this phrase and you put them together, see how it sounds. Sounds great? Cool. Just keep moving on, and then you can make some really cool loops with that. See what it all sounds like. Alright, cool. And then just for good measure, you know, you can use this technique for anything, but it works really well for Electro and Complextro for the simple fact that the bass lines are really funky, they move a lot, whereas in trance progressive house, the bass lines are just there really to support. You're not really supposed to hear them as much as you are supposed to feel them. So And why I put a kick here is because when you get most percussion loops from the internet and whatnot, what happens is you end up getting these snares and all hi-hats and percussions. They don't really give you a kick. You usually have to throw your own kick in. So let's see if I can find a percussive loop. Not something with not a lot going on, since the bass line is doing a lot. These sound like mostly percussion loops. It only has snares. So, wait. Kind of like that one. Loop it over, and it doesn't sound like it really has a snap or a clap and a snare in there. So let me just throw one in real quick for good measure, so you can see what it sounds like all together. I'll go with a snare for this example. This has more of a release to it. Then you should know where to place the snares and the kicks. If not, I'll do another tutorial on that in the future. But with the loops, and that's what it sounds like with our cut up bass line. And like I was mentioning earlier, is if what you want to do is, if you want to, you don't have to use the same loop. Get rid of these extra pieces. I can go back into my samples, samples and patches, Complextro, and I can pick another loop and take shit out of there. So kind of like this one. So now what I'll do, cut these up real quick and see if there's anything I want to replace. These sound kind of, I don't like this part right here. It is a little rough around the edges, mind you. I'll take off this off beat. I'll put this on the off beat of the third beat. I know what that's going to do already. It's going to do kind of like an arpeggiated bass. And let's grab this here, zoom in, shorten it to where it starts, and have this do exactly what I was doing last time, skipping over to kick. And then on the on beat, I'll take this second bass line, and since this is kind of empty right here, unless it's a snare hitting and you just want to hear the snare, you never want to leave something empty like that. So it sounds like it's continuous. Alright, let's see what it sounds like. Sounds like it goes down pitch right here too. I actually like that. And then see how they both make sense. If I was to cut this down to one loop, you could listen to just this and it would sound fine. See if this makes sense now. Go back to this one, fine tune it. Take this piece. I don't even know what these pieces sound like. It's just I've been doing this for so long that I can really just move things around and have them exactly how I want them. How about right here? I cut this down to, on this second bar, the third beat, on the off beat, this is happening, but I'm going to have this little piece skip. So it hits this, which is the third note, the second beat, which is skipping over to kick, and it skips from this bass line to this right here. Make it just 1/16. No, it doesn't have to be really long, because then it's overlapping this, and then if you don't know what you're doing as far as mixing, then you start having frequency masking and whatnot. So let's see how that sounds. Put a double kick in here. And that's basically it. And then once you have a bunch of loops going for you, and you want to make a new phrase or whatever, and you don't want to just move these around, what you can do is you can copy these over. I do this all the time. Just delete this for the time being. And what you can do is you can take I would say 1 beat or 2 beat loop that you like and mix them together. So this. So I like this. I like this little beat right here. So I'll grab this and I'll just copy this over, I would say 2 times. See another one I like. Like this beat right here. But obviously, since it goes over, you want to cut this down to a 16th note, so that way it fits within the beat. And then I'll just put this right here just to fill it up. And what you can do is then you can have just from taking little beats and piecing them together like a puzzle, you can get new arrangements that sound new, fresh, and awesome. Alright, I'm Mark Hedrick, and I hope that helped you, EDM, more specifically Complextro users out there, with cutting up Complextro loops and using the 16 note grid to help you know where to place them. With enough practice with this, you can basically make, I don't know, arrangements and patterns before you even actually listen to them, and they'll at least be listenable, if that's even a word. Alright, thank you.